morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are, whenever you're watching this. This is Floating in Dreams. Today's video is going to be about swatching out all of the shades in my blue, green, purple palette. Welcome if you're new here. Thank you so very much for joining me. Today's video is going to be a swatch party featuring all of the shades in my blue, green, purple palette. I built this palette myself using singles a couple of years ago, but this is like the up-teens rendition of this palette. So I'll make sure to link you to any videos down below because I think I did a video when I first built it. So if you want to see what this looked like before, then you can see that. But yeah, I definitely made some changes and I just felt it was due an update. So that's why we're swatching this today. In case you're new here, hi, my name is Maaike. I live in the Netherlands. I like to come on here to chat about eyeshadow palettes, Essence and Catrice reviews, and getting the use out of my makeup. Because I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, I deem myself a snow angel. So if you would like to join the Snow Angel Club, then definitely click subscribe down below. So yes, my blue, green, purple custom palette. So the way this palette works is that I have a grouping of purples in this corner. Then I have a grouping of greens and teals over in this corner. And then the blues kind of fuse the entire thing together. So I've got some more like true blues and going into navies over here. And then this section of the palette is more like your turquoisey blues, your grayish tone blues. Like they're blues, but as you'll see in a minute, they're different. So I think I want to swatch it out for you like that. So all the greeny teals first, and then the purples, and then the blues that I've got going on in the middle. So the story behind this palette, I already said it very briefly in my intro, but this is a palette that has changed a lot over time. It used to just have 4 brands in here: ABH, Colored Raine, Sydney Grace, and Nabla. I've taken shades away because I felt they were too similar or the quality wasn't great, and I've definitely put other things in here as I came into other things or as I repressed and depotted things. So we've got depotted shades here, we've got some repressed shades here. I think this is from another palette. So I've got a lot of different things in here, and I, at the moment, don't even really know what's in here anymore. So I just want to reacquaint myself with this. I do have 2 of these shades in my current custom singles palette though. So these I've selected for my September-October customs palette, which is like murky greens for fall, which is what I was feeling like. So let me start swatching these out and tell you all about it. If I don't remember what a shade is called, then I'll make sure to look up in an older video what it's called, and I pop all the names in the description box down below because I just know that I've forgotten what some of these shades are called. So the first shade here is Nabla Babylon. So this shade is actually really, really pretty, but it does take a lot of building up. Like this is not boom kapow pigment to the high heavens, as you will see with some of my Sydney Grace things in a minute. But this is still a very pretty shade because it does build up really well with a brush. Is this my favorite teal in my entire collection? I don't want to make that bold of a statement, but this is Thrilled by Sydney Grace. And as you will see once you've seen that Nabla swatch, why I really love Sydney Grace singles, then you'll understand when I swatch this. And that's Sydney Grace's Thrilled. It's so pretty, this thing. It's really, really pigmented though, so you have to be very light-handed with it. And I do also feel that this is quite dry to the touch, so it's not a creamy matte, in case you were wondering. The next teal we have is Colored Raine Forbidden. This is very, very pretty. So yeah, this is Forbidden by Colored Raine, and it's very, very pretty. It has a nice sheen to it, but it's very dark. It's got a very deep black base. Another Sydney Grace matte. This is Siren Call. This was in my custom singles palette last month. And this is definitely more of like your true foresty green kind of shade. It does have a bit of bluish yellow almost running through it, but it's definitely still quite dark. Another quite deep shade here. This is Starfish from Sydney Grace. And it's sort of like Forbidden from Colored Raine, where it's got that black base and then the green sort of shimmer to it. This is like one of the best dark greens in my entire collection. This is Sydney Grace's Levy, and this is definitely a shade I still want to pop in some sort of custom palette for sure, because it's green, but it's gold at the same time, but without it being a duochrome. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So this has a lot more vibrancy to it. It's not as dark as some of the other shades we've seen so far, but do you just see that it has that sort of gold reflect to it almost, but it's not really a duochrome. It's just like a deep dark green base and then the shimmer is gold. That's the way I feel this works. So this is a shade I selected for my custom singles palette for September, October, as I mentioned. It's a nice murky green, and I had forgotten what this was called, but it's from the Nubian 2 from Juvia's Place, and it's a shade I repressed into a pan I just had. And this was originally called Egypt, I believe. It's the dark green from the Nubian 2. And I really wanted to keep it at the time because it was such a pretty shade. It's again like a dark green with like an olivey gold kind of vibe to it. So it's a very pretty shade and it still swatches beautifully. The final green we have here is by Sydney Grace. This is Commissioner. And it's like one of those shades where it's like, is it gold? Is it green? It could be both. And when I go gold, I go this kind of gold where it's like antique-y with a very strong green undertone. Those are the golds I do enjoy. And this is currently also in my custom singles palette. And there we have Commissioner. As you can see, it's gold, but it's green at the same time. Now that I'm looking at this, maybe the shade Levy is a bit superfluous in my collection in this palette, because I feel that this does what I was hoping Levy to do, and then I feel that Egypt from Juvia's Place is a little bit more unique to the Levy shade, but for now I'm going to keep all three. So those were all of the greens. This looks like a green, but it's actually a blue-brown, so I'm going to be swatching that when we get to the blues. And then we have these shades over here. So this again is like a blurple. So is it blue, is it purple? But I'll rope it in with the purples because we've got a lot of blues. So we're now going to be swatching all of the purples in here. And I'll start with the lightest one because my fingers, oh boy, I should not have started with those dark greens for sure. And here we have the first purple. This is a Nabla shade and this is Pegasus. So the reason why this palette doesn't look very aesthetically pleasing, at least to me, is because the pans from Nabla are bigger than a standard round pan. So that's a bit of a pet peeve of mine. So again, the Nabla shades aren't the best in a finger swatch. This one looks very sheer, but it's like a lavender with a gold sheen to it. This looks really pretty if you pop it in the inner corner. One of my favorite shades in this entire palette, Winter Garden from Sydney Grace. This is stunning. So you can already see here, it looks like a boring lavender shade in the pan, but then when you move your hand around, you see that blue flash. Really pretty topped over things. It works really well with some of these deeper purples. If you want to tone it down a bit and not have such a deep look, this works really well. And because it has a blue undertone, it really nicely bridges the gap between some of the blues I've got going on in this palette and the purples. Lilac Wonder from Nabla is next. Does Nabla even do singles anymore? They just don't seem to promote them, but they're still on their website as far as I know. And here again, we do have that really lovely blue flash, but it's got a stronger purple, like true purple, pinky purple base, you could say. So I actually kept this over a shade from ABH that used to be in here. That was called Electra or Electro, but that was more pink heavy. And I wanted it to be more purple. So this is truly that really pretty lavender sheeny shade. This by itself, all over the lid, buffed into the crease, makes for a great colorful one shadow look. This is Arisia from Nabla. This again won't swatch really well because the mattes from Nabla are a little bit like sheer, you could say, but this color purple is the exact shade of purple that I love. Like this, on my eyes, my complexion, is my perfect purple. Oh, so I remember this being really dry and chalky, but now that I swatch it, it's buttery smooth, and it's one of the best Nabla shades I probably have. Oh well, sometimes your memory just doesn't serve you right all the time. But did you just see, like, it's got, like, we'll get to some warmer tone purples in a minute, but this is like, it's not too cool, it's not too warm, it's like smack in the middle, a good purple, like that perfect blend between red and blue, and that's what I love about this one. And this is one of those warm tone purples. This is Sydney Grace's Sweetheart. This, I think, was gifted to me. I didn't buy this myself. So do you just see that this has a reddish magenta undertone and then that purple sort of flash? It's very pretty, but these kind of purples do sort of give me pink eye. So because of that warmer undertone, I don't wear this a lot, but because it's such a good shade, I've always kept it around. Again, one that I believe I didn't buy myself, but it was a gift. This is Magic Act from Sydney Grace, and it's the other warm tone purple in this palette. And this is borderline pink. As you can see, it's got that hot magenta kind of flash to it. It's very pretty. It's very intense though, but it works really well with some of those softer, more cooler tone purples. Like, let me show you. Watch what happens when you top that over it. Do you see? Do you see what I mean? You get that extra little bit of blue to it, making it even more pink, but if you were to put it with something that's like a more deep, like a deeper purple. So this is one of those shades that, depending on how you blend it and what other shadows you put it with, it's like one of those shapeshifters kind of shade. So that's why I like that. For our deepest purple, we go to ABH, and this is Enchanted. And here you can see that contrast with the other purples we just swatched. Do you just see how blue, black, like it's barely purple. It's almost navy. That's how dark it is. But it definitely does have that blue, like inky sort of quality to it that I like. But it does still look purple. And this, to deepen out an outer crease, is perfection for any purple look. And this is Awake from Sydney Grace, which is a cooler tone purple. And to me, in terms of like depth and what it gives me, it's like the cool tone sister of Sweetheart for me. So do you see that this has less of that like reddish, like magenta sort of vibe, and this is more of like a plum? And then again, it has a bit of that blue, well, it's more like truly like a purple sheen to it, but I do feel that this is again a really good purple shimmer. And this is one of those shades where you could argue whether it's a blue or a purple. It's a periwinkle. It's Remy from Davina. And this is such a really pretty, smooth, like perfect periwinkle kind of shade. I have other periwinkles in my singles collection. I wish we got more shades like this in palettes. Like, can someone do that? Like pop a shade like this in a palette? I would love that, but this is really, really pretty. I do find the Davina quality a little bit on the chalky side, but it's very pigmented, and you can build it up quite easily, but you do need to work a little harder. Another great purple shimmer from Sydney Grace is Pandora. So this has a bit more vibrancy to it, but without it being too pink or blue. So this is again a really good like neutral, right smack in the middle purple, but it is lighter, and of course it does have that sheen to it. This is not a very strong metallic, it's more of like a satiny sheen. But we're not there yet. This is Deliverer from Sydney Grace, and this is more like a golden purple, you could say. It's got a bit of gold running through it. And because of that gold, you get this warm sort of sheen to it. This is so pretty on the eyes because it has that cool tone purple base, but it has that hint of something warm toned. Works really well all over the lid as a really nice shimmer option. And this is again a shade from Sydney Grace I don't remember buying, so again I think I was gifted this. This is Lovely Lavender. That's another really, really good purple. Like, purple can be so many different things, I find. So good purples are very difficult to find, especially if they have like, they need to have the right undertone, the right kind of depth. And that's what I try to do with this palette, is to have different undertones, different depths as well. But I have other purples in my full-on cool tone palette, so I will make sure to link that below in the description box as well. But I feel that these purples can pretty much see me through anything. And now we have all the blues left. So I'm going to start over on this side because here we get some darker things and I don't want to stain my hand even more than it already is. So let's start here in the corner. And now you'll understand why I call this the green, blue, purple palette. This is Green Mist from Sydney Grace. And I bought this to be an inner corner highlight. Sydney Grace does this kind of shade in different renditions. It looks like nothing in the pan. It looks like a white, right? Let me swatch it for you. Oh boy, that is not a white. It's got a green flash. I think they do this in a red. They have red mist, they have blue mist. I have a pink mist highlighter from them that someone's repressed for me. So they do this kind of thing where it's white with a color in any sort of shade you can possibly think of. And the green one was the one that was most unique to me. And this is such a great inner corner highlighter to use with your green eyeshadow looks, which is why I have it. And it's because I own this shade that I actually decluttered my ABH, what was it called? The Moonchild highlighter palette. I decluttered that because I kept that around for Lucky Charm, which was my favorite green inner corner highlight. But now that I have this, I felt I no longer needed it. This is so perfect to go with any of your green looks. If memory serves me right, this is another one of the good ones from Nabla, at least in a swatch. This is New Heaven. Oh yeah. There we go. Look at that swatch go. This is so buttery smooth, and this is such a unique crease, like matte shade. You don't often find turquoisey teal, like bright teal shades like this in a matte formula that is this pigmented and amazing. So that's why this one I never want to get rid of. I never want to get rid of. This shade is a bit of an odd one out. This was in my Makeup Geek eyeshadow palette, and then I decided I wanted to keep it. This is Sorcery from Makeup Geek. So as you can see in the pan, it looks very sort of like gray, but then when you swatch it, it's like a charcoal silvery blue because it's got a lot of blue. And that's why I popped it in this palette, because I felt it could be a nice smoky shade to go in here. So I didn't want to get rid of it, but I didn't have anywhere else to put it. I couldn't put it in my MAC and Makeup Geek singles palette anymore. So I decided to give up one of the shades that was in here and pop this in here because it's so good. My favorite kind of blue, a grayish blue with a golden undertone. This is Dive from Sydney Grace. So this is one of those shades where I'm like, in the pan, it just doesn't look like anything special. And then you put it on the eyes, and this is just, I mean, I know why it's called Dive, because this definitely reminds me of like that, like reflection of the sun on the ocean. That's what this gives me. And then a shade that I feel does a similar thing, but I feel it's different enough to keep it around. This is Venice from ABH. So this has, it looks very similar in the pan, but I feel this is more cool toned. It's like the cool toned version of Dive, where this feels a bit more silvery and a little less warm toned in its flash. But it almost looks a little green when you turn your hand around, but it does have that cool bluish, grayish undertone, which I love. One of the best bright tealy turquoisey shades in my entire collection. This is Malibu from Color Raine. I mean, there's a million shades like this on the market, but there's just something about the level of pigmentation of this that really, do you see that sheen and that depth that the shade still has, but it's still bright at the same time. This is magic in an eyeshadow, I tell ya. If Malibu is a bit too blue for you, then Sydney Grace does sell a shade called Marine Waters, and it's more green leaning, I feel. It's not as blue toned. And this has just a little bit more of a green hint to it. Very similar to Venice and Malibu though, but I feel it kind of bridges the gap between them as well. A really good blue shimmer here is Virgin Island from Nabla. This is again, not super special, but I do also feel that we don't often get shades like this in palettes. I mean, it's such a good blue. It's just a good blue. It looks a bit sheer in the swatch, I feel, but again, you can build this up and it will be fine. And now I know for sure that this is a repressed Juvia's Place palette, Juvia's Place shade as well. This is a shade from the Warrior 3. I don't remember the name. And again, it's like the lighter version of Sorcery by Makeup Geek, where it looks like a gray, straight up gray in the pan, and then you swatch it, and then it has this really pretty bluish periwinkle shade to it. But then, do you just see, it has that darker charcoaly silvery base. This is why, like, this is the only shade that, like, and the next one coming up, that really had me refrain from decluttering my Warrior 3. But I ended up repressing it as a single, and now I'm very happy that I still have the shade, but I don't have the bulky palette. And this is that other shade from the Warrior 3 that I kept, another really good blue shimmer. So this has a level of vibrancy and blueness, you could say, that we haven't seen yet. I feel as the more we go into this direction, the more of a true blue we're getting. The other shades all have a bit of gray running through it, and I just feel this is a good light blue shimmer. Do we need any more blue-brown pigments in our lives? I don't know, but I kept the Makeup Forever one around that I pulled from a palette years ago because I just feel this is one of the best ones I've ever tried. And one of the reasons why I like this so much is because it doesn't pool as blue. It's more of like a greeny teal, which is kind of why it's on that side of the palette. But because it's one of those super random shades that ended up in here, I decided to swatch it here. I promise this is the last random shade in this palette. This is a shade from ColourPop's Blue Moon. It's the very light white-like shade, but this has a blue flip. It's like Green Mist from Sydney Grace, but then it's blue. Do you see? Looks like a boring white in the pan, but it pulls blue, and that's why I did put them like away from each other in the pan or in the palette, so I can identify which one is which, and I don't accidentally pick the blue one when I had intended to grab the green one instead. But yeah, it's really, really pretty. If you're doing a blue look, great inner corner highlight. So this is a shade that wasn't originally in here. This is from Divina. It's called Hydra, and it's a matte. An electric blue matte that isn't super chalky. So electric blue mattes can be very difficult to do. I had one in here from color Raine, then I tried to put one in here from the ColourPop Blue Moon palette, and I just ended up feeling that this one was superior to both of those, which is why I kept this one over the other two. And you'll see that this isn't fully matte, but it has a bit of a sheen to it, which is, I think, why this works and blends better than any electric blue I have ever tried. It's that sheen that helps it blend and to go more on opaque and not be as chalky. I feel this just has a right binding agent. And really, when you pop this in the crease with a fluffy brush, that sheen is not really going to be that noticeable. So I use this as I would a matte. But Blue Magic from Colored Raine, I definitely kept around. This is such a good blue shimmer. It doesn't get more blue and vibrant than this. This is a great royal blue shade. And what was it called again? I forgot the name already. Blue Magic from Colored Raine is definitely one of the best blues in my entire makeup collection. This is Fierce from Sydney Grace, and I promised I would swatch it with the purples, and I completely forgot. But this is your Blurple. It's one of those things that when you put it on, it's like, is it a blue? Is it a purple? It's a Blurple. Vibrant, intense. This is the kind of purple I live for. Like, this is my favorite kind of purple, a Blurple, which is why if you saw my fun shimmer palette swatches, you know that I have a couple of these, but I feel they're all different. And then we get to some darker blues here. This is Prussian Blue from ABH. This is so pretty. It is dark though. It's a very intense dark blue, but again with that shiny finish, and this is really, really good. It's a great wintertime shade. And lastly, I felt this palette really needed a blue navy matte, and this is Blue Velvet from Nabla. So this is again a little bit patchy, but it doesn't feel as dry as the teal one that we swatched at the start of the video. It's really nice, dark and intense though. It's really, really good. It's like borderline black, but not so dark and that you can't see it's not a black. So that's why I do love this one. So I've given the palette a quick little wipe down. Let me see if I can pop this baby back together roughly the way it was. I probably won't be able to replicate it exactly, but so sort of, kind of, a little bit. I think I kind of got it back into place, but it all fits again, so I'm really happy with that. So I hope you really enjoyed watching today's video, swatching all of these blue, green, purpley shades. I definitely have other blue, green, purples in my collection, so I'll pop some other links in the description box down below in case you would like to see some more swatches. But yeah, I really like this, and I now need to put these two back into their palettes. So that's what I'm going to be doing after I'm done filming this. So thank you so very much for joining me today. I hope you got something out of the video. Thumbs it up if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make several videos a week, so if you'd like to stay tuned for more, and then I hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye.